Okay, welcome everyone. As we broadcast from home base here tonight again, to Agud Yisrael Fairways. Daf is sponsored by Baruch Ian Leilu Nishmas Esther Bas Yom and Yaakov Chaim Ben Abba Avram Ben Shmuel HaKohen L'Refuah Shalema for Baruch Shlomo Ben Lina, and that he should have a Refuah Shalema. We also are sponsored by Aaron Swade. The share is Leilu Nishmas Chana Bas Shmuel and Freda Bas Shaul. We are sponsored by Shimon Der for the Cholei Adaf and Ochel Yisrael by Mark Frankel, L'Refuah Shalema for Miriam Sar Bas Sipor by Berak Gowasser, for Hakar Satov for what Hashem did for his family, and for the all Cholei Yisrael. And we also want to learn from Aishver Avigdaya ben Rivka, for Yehudis Tziril Bas Miriam, from Ben Chayesar. They should have Refuah Shalema V'Seich Shar Cholei Yisrael. Again, we have really interesting daf tonight as we welcome in Saba, Dr. Block, Menachem Umansky, Rabbi Kranz, Yisrael Fisher, Berish Gesseman, Baruch Ian, Eddie Chazan, Mo Kushner, Nachman Chapler, and Marshall Castle. Aryeh Perlman is joining us. David Helfgott on Kol HaLashon. Here in Shul, we have Rich Leonard, we have Yisrael Kramer, Chaim Kramer, I have a Yisrael Kramer also, Chaim Kramer, and Avram Schenkman. Ruvain Pollack is joining us now. Let's see. We are holding by Hahu Gavra, which is the bottom line of Chesamid Beis. Bottom line, Chesamid Beis. Hahu Gavra, David come Mazvin Chumrei and Paschaisa. That's how Rashi learns. Rashi learns there's a Chama. Chumrei, which is some type of tin buttons, and Paschaisa, some type of glass ringlets for a necklace. Asoi hahi itzsa, a woman came, Amrle havli chad soicha. Give me one string of those ringlets, or one string of those buttons for a necklace. So he says, real romantic. Amallah, he says to her, if I give it to you, what a sport. Mikdashli, will you be betrothed to me? Amallah, so she says to him, Hava mi hava, just give it to me. Amar Rav Chama, Kol hava mi hava, just give it to me. Lav klumu, that's not an exception of Kiddushin. She said, just give it to me. Haknish that Chinik. Says the same idea. He was sitting in a bar, drinking wine. He had a bottle of wine, the chanusa, in a bar. Also, a woman came, give me a drink. So another romantic. If I give you a drink, mikdeshesli, will you be betrothed to me? And just give me a drink. Just give me a drink. Lav klumu, that's nothing. Sorry, that's nothing. And one more big sport over here as we welcome in Irving Fishbaum. And Shalom Fogel has been cited. Shalom, you've been missed. Everything
out of the country.
Huh?
Out of the country.
Out of the country. If I had a penny for every excuse like that, as we welcome in Irving Fishbaum, who is out of the country but is still here. Actually, Irving Fishbaum is in the country, in the upper mountains of the Poconos.
I met somebody this morning that said that I think the Rebbe is his son's Rebbe.
What's the name? Do you know?
No, I don't remember. I forgot the name. But he said he's going to send regards. He's going to remember my name. He's going to send regards to the Rebbe.
Okay, very good. And Yitzi Padower is joining us. I'm always...
Where does Rav Chama come to be in a bar?
Well, it doesn't really say. No, Rav Chama.
Women like that hang around bars.
No, Rav Chama was.
How does the Gemara bring out
Rav Chama was not in a bar. Rav Chama is just giving the halacha. Amar Rav Chana kol hadam yihava lav kluma. Rav Chama wasn't in the bar. Now, the next halacha. Hahu gavra davikoshodi tamre medikla. Here's a guy, he's on the top of a palm tree, and he's throwing down dates from the palm tree. You know, you got to shimmy up a palm tree in order to get on top to get the dates. So he's throwing down dates. Asa hiyitzisa, this is the only date she knows. Asa hiyitzisa, a woman comes, Amalei shadali tarti, throw me 2 dates. So here again, Mr. Romantic, Amala ishadina leich, if I give you 2 dates, mikdeshesli, he has a new spin on what a date is, right? He says, throw me the 2 dates, and he says, with the 2 dates, will you be betrothed to me? Amalei shadi mishta, just throw it down to me. So Amarav Zid, kol shadi mishta, just throw it down to me. Lav klumu. That's not that she's being makabel. To the contrary, she says, "Taknish kanchainik. Don't drain me a cup. Just throw me the 2 dates." Iboyalu. Let's say she didn't say just throw it down. Let's say she said, "Have, give me the buttons. Ashke, give me the drink. Shadi, throw me the dates." She didn't say it in like an exasperated tone. A double lashon. Ma, what's the din then? Amaravina mekudeshes. Then she's agreeing with the condition. He said, "Will you be mekudeshes?" And she said, "Give it to me. Throw it down. Give me the drink." However, Rav Sama Baraksa Amar, nah, Tagan Amalka, by the crown of the king. No, is he swearing by like Hashem? Ain't a mekudeshes. She's not mekudeshes. She just said, "Give it." She didn't say okay. The hilchasa ain't a mekudeshes. Even if she says at one time she's not mekudeshes. The hilchasa shiroi loitzriche shuma. If the silk is worth 50 zuz, then it doesn't need prior assessment. As long as it's worth what he said it was worth, then she's mekudeshes when he gives her the silk. And the hilchasa k'Reb Elazar. And halacha is like Rebbe Lazar, if he says he's being mekadesh or a mana, but he doesn't have the mana and he gives her a mashkin, she's not mekudeshes, because like we said, mana ain't kan, mashkin ain't kan. And finally, the hilchasa k'Rava Marav Nachman, and the halacha, the hilchasa k'Rebe Lazar, that if he says be mekudeshes to me with a mana and gives her a dinner, so he's mikudeshes, and then he has to just give the difference. And v'hilchas ha'karav amar Rav Nachman, if he says you should be mikudeshes with a mana and gives her collateral, she's not mikudeshes, because mana ain't kan and mashkin ain't kan. The mana he didn't give her, and the mashkin is not something that she keeps. So therefore, she's not mikudeshes. So now we go to the next step. By the way, Rabbi, so you see, I was Dan Shalom the right way. When I said he wasn't here for a few days, he must be away. I was right. He was in the far reaches of the Amazon. As we welcome in also Michal, who's joining us. So now, we learned that you could be mekadesh and isha with a shtar. Now that's a strange thing. What exactly do you do? So Tan Rabbanan bishtar keitzad. Now remember, you could be mekadesh a woman, or you could give the kiddushin to the father to be mekadesh his daughter. So Tan Rabbanan bishtar keitzad. How are you mekadesh bishtar? Kosav lo yalanir al acheres. If the chosin writes on a paper or on a shard, Afal pishein shava by pruta, even if it's not worth a pruta, because if it's worth a pruta, then it could be mekadesh with the pruta value. But even if it's not worth a pruta, and He writes to the father, Bitcha Mikudeshesli, your daughter should be Mikudeshesli. Bitcha Muresesli, your daughter should be betrothed to me. Bitcha Li the Inter, your daughter should be to me as a wife. Harizum Mikudeshes. Says the Gemara, but I don't understand the lumdus, the mechanics over here, exactly of this shtar. Maskevla Rab Zeir Bamamal Haloi Domi Hai Shtar L'Shtar Zvine. This shtar is not like a shtar of purchase. Hasa moicher kaisev loy. There the seller writes, Sadai mechuralach. But hacha Baal, who's the purchaser, kaisev bitka mekudeshes li. Your daughter is mekudeshes to me. So it doesn't seem to follow the same way of a shtar mecher. Shtar mecher, the seller writes the shtar. Here, the husband, who is, so to speak, the buyer, he writes the shtar. So Rava says it's all based on psukim. Hasam in Yana Dekra, there it follows the context of the pasuk. V'hacham in Yana Dekra, and here also it follows the context of the pasuk. Hasam ksiv umochar me'achuzasai, and he sells from his possessions. So b'moicher talarachmana. So therefore, it's the seller that the Torah says it depends on. So the Gemara says, yeah, by a sale, it also says the purchaser. Fields with money you acquire. Says the Gemara, kari be yakanu, to transfer. Now my time, or yaknu, to transfer. My time occurs by yaknu mishum dichsiv u'machar. So hachanami kari be kiyakach, that she allows herself to be taken, dichsiv as biti nosati l'ishazeh. My daughter I gave to this man, where then it says the emphasis on the girl and not on the man. Alama Rava says hilchas it's actually halachal mishmi Sinai, that by a sale it's the meicher, and by Kiddushin it's the chasen. And they just propped it as a reminder on the psukim. There by a sale, it says clearly v'ekach es sefer hamikneh, that the buyer takes the sefer of purchase from the seller. So there it says clearly that it's the seller. V'amar Rav Nachman, we'll have a little bit more details over here. V'amar Rav Nachman, Chasav loy alanir, if the chasen writes on a paper, or ala cheres, on a shard, afal pish ein shav by shav pruta, it doesn't have to be with a pruta. Bitcha mikudeshesli, your daughter is betrothed to me. Bitcha miresesli, your daughter is engaged to me. Bitcha lila inta, your daughter is to me as a wife. Bein al yedei avia, whether the document is accepted by the father, bein al yedei atzma, or by the girl. The Ritva says that that's if the girl is a nara, at least she has maturity, she's 12 years and 1 day. Mikudeshes, as long as it's midatai, as long as it's with the father's consent, because until she becomes a bugris, she's and that's at 12 and a half in 1 day. Until she becomes a bugris, she is under the control of the father. V'hu shaloi bagra, if she didn't become 12 and a half in 1 day. If he writes on a paper or on a shard, and it's not with a pruta, you should be engaged, betrothed, you should be my wife, you should be engaged to me, whether it's accepted by the father, who's the agent of the girl, or by herself, midata, only with her consent, because when she's 12 and a half in 1 day, she's out of the rishus of her father, and we need her consent. Boy, Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, this is a very interesting question. We know a get has to be written l'shma. You have to write it for the sake of the woman. Does a shtar kiddushin have to be written l'shma? Or could you take a star that was written for one? Chaim had a mind to marry one woman, and then he changed his mind for another woman. Could he use that same star that says Hariyat Mekudeshesli for another woman? By Reb Shimon Lakish, star Erisin Shekashvu Shaloi Lishma wasn't written for this woman, but he's a fickle guy. He changed his mind, and now he's using it for a prettier girl. Now, do we say Havaya Liyitzia Makshinan? It says V'yotza V'haisa. So he juxtaposed Kiddushin to Gerushin. Ma Yitzia, just like a get, has to be written Lishma. Ma Yitzia Ba'inan Lishma. Af Havaya Ba'inan Lishma. So Kiddushin also you need that it should be Lishma, that the star has to be written for this girl. Or we juxtapose different types of Kiddushin. Now, we don't have to mint the silver for this woman. So also the star, it doesn't have to be for this woman. However, after he cleared the shaila, he resolves it. It says, just like the get has to be written Lishma, and the Shtar Kiddushin has to be written Lishma. But now we have a further, excuse me. Now we have a further question. What if Chatzkel wants to marry Sarah? He wrote the shtar for Sarah, but when he wrote it, Sarah didn't know about it. Is that okay? At the time, when he wrote it, he didn't even tell her he wants to marry her.
Doesn't have to tell by get.
What?
He doesn't have to do it by get.
Yeah, that's because by get, it's Bal Karcha. So now let's see. Itmar, Kosvu Lishma V'Shaloi Midata. If he wrote it for her, but without her knowledge. Rava Ravina Imrei Mikadeshes. Rava Ravina say, like Rabbi Kranz, Mikadeshes. Rav Papa Rav Shravya Imrei Eina Mikadeshes. Amar Rav Papa. So Rav Papa says, Eima Taima Ditu. I'll tell you their reasoning. The Eima Taima Didi. And I'll tell you my reasoning. Their reasoning is like they were mechaven to Rabbi Kranz. Eima Taima Didu, I'll tell you their reason. It says a juxtaposition to get. She doesn't have to know when the get is written. And I'll tell you my reasoning. You need the das of the one that's giving it. So by get, the one that's giving it as a husband is granting her freedom. So here also the woman is giving herself to the man, then you would need the das of the woman. The star to get, the one that's giving. You need the das of the woman. So the Gemara tries to bring a proof. Don't get too excited, it's not going to be a good proof. Meisvei. Ein kaisvin stori erisin unisuin. We don't write documents of betrothal and marriage, ela midash neyan, except with the consent, the knowledge of the two sides. My lav shtare erisin unisuin mamish. That means, so a shtar erisin, you need the knowledge of the girl. Lo ishtare psikta. Now this is talking about documents of allocation. How much each side promises. Ukirav Gidol Marav. Rav Gidol Marav, Kama Tanais in the bin. How much do you give to your son? Kach v'kach. I'm paying half the down payment on the house. I'm paying for the bedroom set. How much you giving your bitcha? Kach v'kach. I'm getting her 2 shetels and the linens and the dining room set. Amdu v'kitchu. Then, if they go and they're betrothed, kanu. Then the promises are binding, even if they didn't make a kinyan with it. Hein advorim aniknin ba'amira. These are the matters that are acquired with amira. And although there is a verbal agreement, to put it down on paper and record it, you need their permission. But it's not talking about at all about shtar kiddushin. And the Gemara does not resolve whether you need the das of the woman or not. Now, the next type of kiddushin is kiddushin with bia. Ubabia minolan, how do we know? So now, the Gemara had told us earlier, it says ki yikach ish isha uba'ala. But now the Gemara tells us another source. And we darshan malamid shenasa labal al yedei beila, that if he has relations with her, he becomes her husband. Amalei Reb Zera l'Rabavo. So Reb Zera asked Rabavo, "V'imr lo Reish Lakish Reb Yochanan, K'ura zu sheshana Rebbe, is it ugly?" The drasha of Rebbe, it says ki yikach ish isha ba'ala malamid sheniknas b'biyah. The problem is, if it says ki yikach ish isha ba'ala, I might think you need kesef and biyah, because it doesn't say ki ba'ala, it says ki yikach ish isha ba'ala. So the Gemara says, if it would be that drasha, that you have to do kesef and biyah. Kamash malan bu'ulas bal, that would be alone. Says the Gemara, how could you have a havamid that you have to have kesef and biyah? If you have to have kesef and biyah, how would you ever have a nara marasa that gets skila? If the only way she could be marasa is with kesef and biyah, she could never be a virgin. And there's only skila if she's a virgin. And that's the Gemara's question. If you need kesef and biyah, how could there be a betrothed maiden who, if she's violated, he gets skila? If they had kiddushin with biyah, then she's not a virgin. Bu'ulahi. And and that's not enough. Lav klomo, she's not mureses. So the Gemara suggests you could have it. If the husband gave her money and then had unnatural biyah, so she's still a virgin because it was unnatural biyah. Says the Gemara, Amru Rabbanan Kamei Debayim Mishkachas Lo K'gaim Sheba Le Arish Shaloi Kedarka. He had anal biyah with her, so she's still a virgin by Yisamakam. Amalei Abaya, no. If the husband has anal biyah with her, everybody agrees she's not a virgin. Ad kan le pligi Rebbe v'Rabbanan, whether she loses her virginity ela ba'achar, with unnatural biyah by someone else. Aval Baal, but if the husband has unnatural biyah, divrei hakol in ba'aleh shaloi kedarka asa b'ula. Now, how do we know that? Mahi, the Tanya ba'aleh yud anoshim. If 10 people slept with her, she was a betrothed maiden, and 10 people slept with her. V'adayin hi besula, because all 10 had anal biyah with her. Kulan beskila. Rebbe says, Omer ani harishon beskila. The first one is stoned, but when the first one has anal biyah, after that she's not a basula, she's not a complete virgin anymore, and therefore for the rest of them, they get just for adultery strangulation. the kulan bechenek. And the Amr of Nachman by Yitz, but everybody agrees that if the husband has bia with her, she's not a bull anymore. So if you hold that you need kesef and bia for her to be mereses, how could you ever have a nara murasa who's still a virgin that is raped and is chayiv skila? Because if there's no bia, she's not mereses, and if there is bia, then she's not a virgin anymore. And the Gemara answers, Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Mishkachas lo kegoyin shekitcha b'shtar, where he was mekadosh over the shtar, because mekadosh with the shtar, that's enough, because it's the same thing as a get, just like a get completes it, so a shtar also completes it. Hayel v'gamar u'maitzi, since a shtar completely severs the relationship, Gaimer u'machnis, it completely acquires her. Now, Rabbi Yochanan, who learns out from Ba'ulas Baal, that bia is kaina, what does he do with ki yikach ish isha u'ba'ala? Hayu ba'ala my avidle. Oh, that's coming to tell me a different halacha. That only a wife is niknas with bia, but an amma of Riyah, a Jewish maidservant, is not acquired with bia. Hahu mebayle zu niknas bebia. Ki yikach ish isha u'ba'ala. Only a wife is acquired bebia, but the ein amma of Riyah niknas bebia. Why? Because I might think, so kedaita chamina, I might think, teisi kal v'chaymer mi Yavama, that we should learn how to kal v'chaymer from Yavama. Ma Yavama shein niknis bekesef. Ma dachi Yavama, that's not acquired with money. Right? If Reuven marries Sarah and Reuven dies childless, Shimon acquires Sarah with Yibum, with Bia, but even though she's not acquired by the Yavam with money, Zu, an Amavriya, sheniknas bekesef einoi din sheniknas bebia. She surely should be acquired with bia. So the Gemara says, yeah, but the reason why bia works by the Yavama is because there's already a levirate attachment. She's already zakak liyibam. Mala Yavama shekain zekuka vaymedes, because once Ruvain dies, Sarah falls to Shimon, and there's a magnetism there because she can't marry anybody else. However, says the Gemara, so kedaita chamina, hoyel v'kosav, imacheres yikachloi. There's a mitzvah by an Amma of Riyah of Yiyud that he could marry her, and it says that if he takes another wife, he should be careful not to neglect this Amma of Riyah. So hoyel v'kosav imacheres yikachloi. If he takes another wife besides the Amma of Riyah, so he should be careful not to neglect her. So it juxtaposes the Amma of Riyah to another wife. Hekesha akasav la'acheres. Ma'acheres mikanya b'bia. Just like the other wife could be acquired by bia, I might think af Amma of Riyah also mikanya b'bia. Therefore, kamash malon ki yikach ish isha u'ba'ala, that only a wife is kind of with bia, and Amma of Riyah is not. Now the Rebbe, who learns out from Ki Yikach Ish Isha Ba'ala that an Isha is niknas b'bia, Hai Svarim Minal. And how do we know that an Amma of Riyah is not acquired by bia? So Rebbe has two drushes. It could have said Ki Yikach Ish Isha U'Ba'al. In Kein Lichter Rachman U'Ba'al, Mayu Ba'ala, there's an extra hey, Shma Mino Tarte. But there's another drusha that we learn out from this. You gotta know that there are other drushes. If, let's say, in a darkened room, a man was Mekadesh, one of two sisters, and they were a little tipsy, so they don't remember, and he doesn't remember which one he was Mekadesh. The din is that it's not a good Kiddushin. Because since he doesn't know, he can't sleep with any of them. Because one of them is Achos Ishtoi, which is an Issacharus. And that's called Kiddushin She'ein Mesurin L'Bia. Kiddushin that doesn't allow for Bia. Because he can't sleep with them, because one of them is his wife's sister. And therefore the Kiddushin is not good because it says, Ki yikach ish isha u'ba'ala. It has to be ro'i l'biyah. And says the Gemara, U'l'Rava da'amar, Rava who said, Barahina asberli. Barahina explained to me, Ki yikach ish isha u'ba'ala. Kiddushin ha-mesurin l'biyah have a Kiddushin. Kiddushin that allows for biyah is a good Kiddushin. Kiddushin she'ein mesurin l'biyah, but if it doesn't allow for biyah to have a Kiddushin, it's not a Kiddushin at all, then that's another drasha. How does he know that you could be mekudeshes b'biyah? Ma'ikalameima. So he says, yeah, because if it was just telling me Kiddushin with biyah, then it says, it should say, Ki yikach ish isha oy ba'ala. Because it's either kesef or biyah. So it's telling me another halacha that it has to be Kiddushin or Ru'uya L'biyah, Shmamina Kulu. It teaches us all of them. Now, what is Rebbe who says that we learn out Kiddushay Biyah from Ubala? What does he do with Bu'ulas Baal? The Rebbe Hai Bu'ulas Baal, my Ovidlay. This is where he knows that if the Baal has even Bia Shaloi Kedarka, she becomes not a virgin. Hai mebayele Baal Oisa Oisa Ba'ula Shaloi Kedarka. The husband makes her a non-virgin even if it's anal sex. Ve'ein Achar Oisa Oisa Ba'ula Shaloi Kedarka, because only Ba'ula's Baal, only the Baal makes her a Ba'ula with anal, with unnatural intimacy, and not anyone else. We're going to stop over here, Rabbi Isai. Tomorrow, Rabbi Isai will be broadcasting Be'ezrus Hashem Yisbarach back from the mountains. And tomorrow will be the Chumash year, dedicated by Rich and Hinda Leonard. Right? Hinda Leonard. And so stay tuned for that. Start time again, 8:15. We did the Mishnah Yomis already earlier. We'll put it on shortly. Thank you for joining us and have...
I'm sorry, can I add something on this with Gemara we had? Just
yes.
When it says, when the drasha is or it should have said ay, usually it's the other way around. It's the other way around, you have less. It could have said it differently, but here it's the opposite.
Well, because Obala is misleading. You see, the Gemara asked that question. It's mashma, you need both.
Right. So then... So it should have said, "I."
That's correct. That's correct. Have a good night, everybody.